The Pac family has gathered for Pac-Man's birthday party. What? One after another, they've been kidnapped by the ghosts. Rescue the Pac family. Head to Ghost Island. Pac-Man World Repack. Set off on a grand adventure in this full remake of Pac-Man World. Explore 6 mysterious worlds. In order to save your kidnapped family, take on all the bad guys that stand in your way. Feed your appetite for adventure! Pac-Man World Repack! Coming August 26, 2022!
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel where the goal is to play every single game that every character in Super Smash Bros. Is from, starting from the oldest to the newest. Sorry for the delay between this video and the last one. I had actually started making this one before my last one had uploaded, but in that time frame I finished school and bought a house, and yeah, things have been really hectic. But enough about my personal life, let's talk about Pac-Man. After the era of the arcade had come and gone, Pac-Man was determined to stay. Where most of his contemporaries fell off after the rise of the home console, Namco wanted to find a way to keep our little bounty friend relevant in this new era. Back in my first video, I mentioned that I wanted to stick to the mainline games first and then come back and do the miscellaneous type games. That way, for my own sanity, I wasn't stuck in Mario for the next 20 years. Now, there are a lot of Pac-Man games, and it was hard to narrow down what is considered his mainline games, so I went on a limb and decided that myself. I'm also going to mention the ones that I think are just kind of relevant to his history as a whole. If people want it, I can start working on the Pac-Man miscellaneous video right now, seeing as I pretty much have footage for all of his games. So yeah, if you want that, leave a comment down below and let me know. But what I did as of now is I broke this up into 2 different videos. One being the mainline games, and the second one being his rebranding days with the Ghostly Adventure games. And my goal is to have this one come out and then the Ghostly Adventure Days one come out the following week. So let's get started with the first game that I don't consider it a mainline game, but I consider it important to his history as it's the first game I can see that was made exclusively for home consoles. Pac Attack, also known as Pac Panic, was a Tetris-like puzzle game where the player lines up blocks and ghosts, but instead of them going away on their own, the goal is to line the ghosts up so when a Pac-Man piece appears, he will eat all the ghosts. You can spin the blocks around and move them left and right just like in Tetris, and when the Pac-Man piece does appear, the ghosts will all change into their panic state to give them the same effect as in the original Pac-Man games. On the left side of the screen, you have a fairy meter that starts to get filled up as Pac-Man eats the ghosts. When the meter is filled, a fairy will appear in Pac-Man's place on a block, and when the fairy lands, it clears all the ghosts on the board. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one, as it's mostly a clone, and like I said, the only reason I put it here is because it's the first Pac-Man game I can find that was made exclusively for home consoles. But I will mention a couple things, like for instance, this game has a versus mode, and for player 2, the ghosts are represented by Sue and not Blinky. And on top of being a Tetris-like clone, Pac Attack is also a reskin of another Namco title that came out a year prior called Cosmo's Gang: The Puzzle. It looks the same and plays exactly the same, just replace the characters with Pac-Man theming. So if you're looking for a Tetris-like game but thought Tetris doesn't have enough Pac-Man, then I'd say this is for you.
So, you got friends, but imagine if you had one special friend.
Hi, I'm your buddy.
One that would do anything for you.
Here, drink this. Chewy. Wear this.
Well, you can with Pac-Man 2, the cool interactive cartoon. He's your best pal, and no matter how much you abuse him, he'll still come back for more. So get Pac-Man 2 for Sega and Super NES.
Get the box.
I mean, what are friends for?
Pac-Man 2: A New Adventure, also known as Hello Pac-Man in Japan, is a point-and-click adventure game created by Namco and Mandrill Club in 1994. Even though Pac-Man 2 shares the name of Pac-Man, I can honestly say that is where the similarities end. It is so out there that it almost doesn't feel right calling this a sequel to Pac-Man. Pac-Man 2 The New Adventure is a point-and-click adventure game where you play as a guide for Pac-Man, controlling the world around him. Throughout the game, you are given tasks from Miss Pac-Man, like getting milk for the baby, getting flowers for Junior's friend, rescuing Junior's guitar, and saving the city from the ghosts. There are also side quests you can take on, like retrieving all the pieces of a Miss Pac-Man game that you can play at the local arcade. In the game, not in real life, although that'd be way more impressive if it was in real life. In order to guide Pac-Man through the game and complete these tasks, you can either point him left, right, up, or down, or you can use a slingshot to shoot things for him to interact with. You can also shoot him, but he really doesn't seem to like it that much. The game also introduces a new villain to the franchise, the Ghost Witch, the leader of the Ghost Gang. I get a little bit of Rita Repulsa vibes if you ask me. But the Ghost Gang feels more like an afterthought in this game, and to be honest, Pac-Man as a hero feels more like an afterthought too. The first task you have to complete is getting milk for the baby, which I mean, yeah, that's what a good dad does, but like, I don't feel like it's a main mission to my hero Pac-Man. But at least he's coming back though, am I right? Sorry, bad joke. It may not make sense for the hero, but it does a great job of showing off the gameplay. What you do is guide Pac-Man to the right, where you must shoot this hay to fall on the dog farmer, because if you do not, he will scare Pac-Man away. At first I thought this was cowardly of Pac-Man, but to be fair, this is trespassing, and even though Pac-Man is a hero, he does not want to get arrested for trespassing, so I understand this one. Once he slowly creeps past the farmer on his tippy toes, he will take a quick breather, and then you will see the cow in which you will be getting the milk from. But Pac-Man can't just milk the cow, no, that'd be ridiculous. He needs that jar on top of the fence. And if you haven't noticed, he's too short, he can't reach. So in order to get it, you must shoot this bird who is minding his own damn business. Felt pretty rude doing it, but it is what it is. The bird will dive down and attack Pac-Man for my dicketry, causing the jar to fall on the ground. After chasing Pac-Man around for a bit, it flies away and Pac-Man is free to pick up the bottle and milk the cow. And once you have walked back, you have completed one of the 4 amazingly heroic tasks. You also get these little cutscenes that show you the results of your good deeds, and then it leads into another cutscene where it shows the Ghost Witch scolding the Ghost Gang. Which, I mean, to me felt a bit harsh, as all he was doing was getting milk to feed his child. But I guess the Ghost Witch isn't just out for Pac-Man, she's out for the whole damn lineage. She does not want to see a single spawn of him exist. Which is pretty dark for a kid's game, but hey, I didn't make it. And then you get a third cutscene where you see Pac-Man fly in and then meet with his family, and then they show the logo of the game. So at first I thought, oh, okay, cool, that was pretty easy, I already beat it. Alright, whatever, move on. But they do this after each task to give you a code, so whenever you want to load the game up later, you can input that code and load that spot. The second task is where I draw the line as a partner. Miss Pac-Man asks Pac-Man to get flowers for Junior's friend's birthday, which, alright, fair, we can run to the store, and no! Here is a lift pass to a mountain, take a minecart ride, paraglide through the sky, and get flowers from on top of a mountain. What the fuck? This task does do a great job though, showing off even more of what the gameplay does with Pac-Man. When you get to this mountain, Pac-Man will read this sign and get too scared to go forward as it says danger. What you have to do as the guide is shoot the sign to turn it around, and then Pac-Man will actually walk across. And here you need Pac-Man to get across, but he will never jump on his own. So when he gets close, you actually have to shoot him and it will make him bounce onto the platform to him to keep going. So yeah, the main goal of the game is kind of just to beat the shit out of Pac-Man to get him to do what you want him to do. He doesn't really seem to mind as long as he gets his wife off his back, so it is what it is. I did mention the minecart section, which is really cool, but it took me so many tries to do. It's very interactive as you are the one who controls how fast Pac-Man goes, as well as shooting him to bounce him over spots where he can hit his head. And something cool that happens here that I do like is that before the ghosts can set up their traps, they actually have to fly over top of you. And if you shoot them, they won't be able to set up their traps. The reason this took me many tries isn't just simply the difficulty, but also because of how long it is. And every time you fail, you have to restart at the beginning. I quite literally have just about an hour of footage of me failing at this one section over and over. This is also the first time I personally interacted with the ghosts outside of the minecart portion. They're hiding in a trash can but jump out and scare you. You have to shoot Pac-Man a power pellet when they show up and he will turn into Super Pac-Man, flying around the screen with his muscular arms which do absolutely nothing because he eats them instead of even touching them with his hands. His arms here actually kind of reminded me of SpongeBob in that one episode where he has those blow-up arms. But make no mistake, Pac-Man is absolutely yoked. When the timer runs out on Super Pac-Man, Pac-Man gets off the juice and turns back to normal. You see here they drop a sort of card, and this is important as it's an ID card, which lets you get into the final boss fight later. So the game does a great job of encouraging exploration, as technically these ID cards aren't on a linear path with the game. Once I made my way through the mine and blew up this wall, I could climb the rope that you could actually reach back at when you first get to the mountain, and then use the paraglider to fly across to another mountain. The paraglide section is pretty similar to the minecart section where the ghosts just try to attack you, which I mean literally the bro is just trying to get flowers for a kid. What is wrong with that, Ghost Witch? What is wrong with that? Regardless, you fly across the mountain, get to the other side, and retrieve the flowers. Third task is the ghost just stealing Junior's guitar, which is honestly just kind of messed up. You just stole from a kid. And through exploration, you end up finding the guitar on the back of this man's back, who is actually just a ghost in disguise. This is also the section where you get to explore the city a bit more. But that actually now brings me to the final task where you actually get to take on the ghosts that are terrorizing the town. So we are finally to the part where Pac-Man actually does the heroic thing. I mean, getting his son's guitar back is heroic, but more like a dad heroic, not like superhero heroic, and now we're to the superhero heroic. And here you have to make your way to the secret hideout of the Ghost Witch. And in order to do that, here I'll talk about where Pac-Man's emotions come into play. Pac-Man will or will not do certain tasks based off his mood. For instance, when I was on the mountain trying to collect flowers, Pac-Man refused to get them because he was sad. He just kind of walked back and forth until he eventually fell off the side. In order to make it to the Ghost Witch's hideout, Pac-Man has to be mad. To make him mad here, I had to shoot a child with a slingshot, which sets him off at me and he really doesn't want to listen. When he's walking in a huff, he approaches a fire hydrant, which he freaks out on and tapes it up, and because of the pressure, it shoots into the air, knocking a manhole cover out of the way, giving you the ability to access the Ghost Witch's hideout. Well, not directly actually. First you have to walk through the sewer, then through this old house, and then you get to the Ghost Witch hideout. All the things to pay attention to, like what's around Pac-Man, what his mood is all really cool and creates more of a unique game experience every time you play. It gives the game a lot of great replay value. Once you get through the sewer and through the ghost place into the secret lab, you will come across a door where you will input the 3 ID cards you collected throughout the game. Once you are inside, you come face to face with the Gum monster, where you and Pac-Man in his Super Pac-Man form fight the monster and bring him down into size until he is no more. And what's cool about this part here is you can actually interact with the Ghost Witch and shoot her in the background. I thought she would have been a bigger deal in the boss fight, but really she's just there in the background. I am not a fan of point-and-click adventure games, and this game was not meant for me. That being said, I think this game has a lot of charm and great work was done on the animations. This game does a really great job with all the facial expressions and showing off Pac-Man's emotions. There's also a lot that can happen in this game that I didn't even talk about here because there's just so much to interact with. So if you want to check out more and try the game yourself, it's pretty fun. One last thing I'll mention is that Pac-Man 2 in the initial release featured a holographic cover that changed depending on how you held it. And the game featured a coupon for $5 to an arcade called Aladdin's Castle, which was a chain that Namco bought back in 1992. The chain is gone now since Namco closed in 2021, but the last location still stands without the branding, and it's called At the Pier Arcade in Quincy, Illinois. So if you're in the area, check it out.
Pac-Man はどこにでも出るんだ。ブラーン、ナムコスーパーファミコンパックインタイム出るんだ。ゲームボーイもね。
Pac-in-Time is a puzzle platform created by a treed concept through a license from Namco that was released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo and Game Boy. Pac-in-Time is actually a reskin of another game called Fury of the Furries. And no, not that type of furry. Unless, like, maybe. This game being a reskin actually makes a lot of sense because this is an odd redesign for Pac-Man. I'm mainly just putting this game here because it's the last time that they mentioned the Ghost Witch. And also there's a rumor that this was possibly going to be called Pac-Man 3. This rumor mainly stems from the Super Nintendo version, which is the most different from all the other versions, and it's also the one I played for this video. In Pac-In-Time, the Ghost Witch sends Pac-Man back in time and back to being a kid before he was known as a hero. Now Pac-Man must make his way through several different levels until he can make his way back to the present. The game consists of 5 worlds and 10 maps each. In order to beat each map, you must collect all the Pac Pals throughout the map. In other words, every map is a collectathon. In each world you get power-ups, but they have to be unlocked in each map. There is the Fireball, which lets Pac-Man, as you can guess, shoot fireballs, a Hammer, which lets Pac-Man smash through things like walls and the floor, Bubbles, which lets him breathe underwater, and my personal favorite, a Rope, which lets Pac-Man swing from whatever is above him, and he can pull himself up and down. Not only does this create the legendary Spider Pack, but it is also the most useful tool by far, as it helps you reach the hardest to reach places, even in a way that I don't think the game fully intended, which is nice to have that kind of freedom. Each item has a corresponding color ring you have to go through to unlock the item. The maps act as like a puzzle for you to solve to collect all the Pac pellets, and even features the Ghost Gang. I will be honest though, I found collecting every Pac pellet in 10 maps to complete one world a bit tedious. I can see why they didn't give this the green light to be Pac-Man 3, as it's just not that good of a game. There's nothing wrong with it if you like collecting, but I found it to get old quick, and there's hardly anything that happens between each world other than a short still frame saying what's next. This is definitely not as good or creative as Pac-Man 2. Like, Pac-Man 2 was an odd game to be called Pac-Man 2, but at least they were trying something. This just felt like a time-killing collecting game, and that's that. But like I said to start, this is the last time we get to see the Ghost Witch, so I figured it was worth mentioning.
Morning, itty bitty. Just what I need. Another little bald guy.
Pac-Man's moving up to a whole new world. Pac-Man World 20th Anniversary in 3D. The star's big new adventure.
Pac-Man World is a 3D platformer developed and published by Namco Home Tech and released in 1999. This is Pac-Man's big jump into 3D platformers, and in my opinion they knocked it out of the park. Pac-Man is celebrating his 20th birthday, which is true, this game is actually the 20th anniversary of Pac-Man. The intro shows Pac-Man's friends and family arriving for his birthday. But one by one they are kidnapped by the ghost. Chomp Chomp, who gets a nice redesign here I believe, Puka from Dig Dug, Baby Pac-Man, Professor Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, and then finally Miss Pac-Man. Some of you may be wondering why Puka's there and not another family member, but it's because the original idea for the game was to have Pac-Man rescue original Namco characters, to throw in some more references to other games. But they changed their mind and went with the Pac-Man family, and they couldn't think of a final one to go with, so they stuck with Puka. I think the change to the family makes more sense in context of the game, but it would have been really cool to see a 3D redesign of a lot of other popular Namco arcade games. When Pac-Man finally arrives, everyone is taken. Shocked and confused on what happened to his friends and home, Pac-Man gets hit in the face by a flyer advertising a party on Ghost Island. That flyer advertises Pac-Man being there, but Pac-Man be him, so Pac-Man not there, so therefore not Pac-Man. Pac-Man makes his way to Ghost Island and is spotted by a ghost who goes to warn the boss. The boss is revealed to be Pac-Man, a robot impersonating Pac-Man. The ghost warns Pac-Man that the real Pac-Man is on his way. He then orders the ghost to track down and destroy Pac-Man once and for all. Pac-Man World is made up of 6 worlds, which include 3 maps and a boss fight. In each world, one map will have a key and another will have one of Pac-Man's missing friends or family. In order to beat the game, you must track down all of Pac-Man's friends and then take Pac-Man down at the mansion party. Each world has a special theme, like for instance the first one is a pirate theme, so the enemies, the loot, and the map are all built around this. Even the ghosts themselves get in on the theming. In each world, you have a lot of items to collect, including the classic Pac pellet, which in my opinion had a great change done to it that does not come back in any of the other games. Pac-Man can throw the Pac pellets as a projectile to take enemies out. I especially like the little lean back he does and just wham, gets him right in the face. The Pac pellets also appear in what is called a Pac chain, which will have Pac-Man go on autopilot and chomp his way through a track of Pac pellets, which I also think is a cool concept. Throughout each level, you collect fruit to rack up points, but some items and fruit do more than others. Every world features a Galaxian fruit, which will let you take on a classic maze stage. These mazes are also themed based on the world you are in. They also increase the amount of obstacles you have to take on as the game progresses. So like for instance here you have a classic Pac-Man stage setup, but then these fireballs are coming down at you. In Pac-Man World, now you have health wedges to collect as Pac-Man as well for his health. The yellow ones count as 1 health bar and the red ones fill his health up to max. There's also the extra life pieces that look like his health bar but it's slightly faded. And Pac-Man also has power-ups in this game, such as the steel ball power-up where Pac-Man becomes invincible and can sink to the bottom of any water section. There's also the shockwave pellet, which makes it so when Pac-Man does his butt bounce move, it can destroy a huge amount of enemies. Then there's the letters where you collect Pac-Man's name in each stage to unlock a bonus round, where you have a time limit to collect all the bonus fruit and extra lives you can. The letter collecting reminded me a lot of Donkey Kong Country, because obviously why wouldn't it? But here, each bonus level is different depending on what world you're in. And that's something I really like about this game is the amount of variety they put into it. There's a lot here to where it never really feels stale. I mentioned Pac-Man has some abilities in this game that become staples for the Pac-Man World series. I already mentioned the butt bounce, which lets Pac-Man bounce on enemies as well as bounce higher into the air, and the rev roll, which lets Pac-Man dash in place to build up speed or run on a treadmill to open doors and race platforms. The maps in Pac-Man World are really amazing platform stages, but the thing I'd like to focus on one is the creativity and uniqueness of the boss fights in each world. In the first world, you battle the ghost pirate ship that chases you down until you reach a spot with pads for you to bounce on to reflect the cannonball shots back at them. This boss fight has the camera angle change to that of a traditional 2D game, but does a good job of creating depth. This one isn't as unique as some of the other boss fights, but it's still pretty cool. The second world in Pac-Man World has an Egyptian theme. So throughout the world you have the mummies and the booby traps, and once again you have the ghosts getting in on the action. But at the end of this world you have a boss fight called Anubis Rex. At the introduction of Anubis Rex, Pac-Man is chased down by a mummy from the mummy's perspective, which is such a cool idea to me and a way to make this part stand out. It also reminded me of a feeling I had as a kid when I played this Goosebumps PC game that I'm sure nobody knows what I'm talking about. In that game, a mummy also chases you down, and I definitely felt the terror then. Once you get past that, the actual Anubis Rex boss fight is a completely different type of terror. And I don't mean terror as in scary, I mean like I think Dark Souls took notes from this boss fight type terror. In the Anubis Rex boss fight, Pac-Man must jump on platform to platform and use the rev roll ability on the pads to open the hands of the statue. Once all the hands are open, you must return to the center and rev roll into the heart of the statue. The reason I say Dark Souls took notes from this is because this is one of the hardest boss fights I have ever played in. Every time you hit the heart of the statue, a new challenge will appear to try to stop you from hitting the platforms, like tornadoes and fireballs and even a beam that shoots out of the head of the statue. And when you add all that together, you have one hard-ass challenge. I am grateful the game does not restart you at the beginning every time you lose a life, but geez, there's no way you could do this without taking at least one hit. There's just no way I can see it happening. Still a really cool boss fight, but yeah, super hard. In the third world, Pac-Man goes into space and you get to see all the cool theming here from the ghosts and the atmosphere itself. You have spaceships and aliens and a lot of really cool stuff going on. But once again, they create another unique boss fight that's actually a throwback to Galaxian. In the boss fight, appropriately named King Galaxian, Pac-Man jumps on a ship and flies it around the stage like an old Galaxian game. You start off shooting rocks and enemy ships until you come across a ship and fly over top of it, and when you reach the end, the head will detach, revealing the actual boss, King Galaxian himself. He will send a horde of enemies and blast, but your goal is to shoot out his eyes until he is no more. I like that his eyes are little Pac-Man symbols too. A fun fact about this fight too is the music playing is actually a remix of an old Galaga song. So this one I love because it's an ode to the past as well as a challenge break from the 3D platform style. Very cool fight, I really like it a lot. The fourth world is all clown and carnival themed, featuring enemies and planes and platforms that spin around and go crazy, all clowns by the way. You even have the silly mirrors like you have at carnivals, and once again the ghosts are getting in on the action. And in this one the boss isn't really as much of a boss fight, it's a race that reminded me a lot of Mario Kart. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean Mario Kart, I mean Pac-Man Rally style, yeah. When you appear in this boss fight, you appear in a bumper car surrounded by clowns. When the race begins, your goal is to get first, and watch out because the clowns can ram into you and knock you off the track. If you get knocked off the side, you restart the race. But this one was hard to control and fun at the same time. I was just so thrown off by the race that I was doing whatever I could to maintain speed and not die. The clowns will drop bombs, which will cause Pac-Man to spin out, and if Pac-Man picks up a power pellet, then he will be able to get a boost of speed similar to a mushroom in Mario Kart. I mean Pac-Man Rally. I don't even know what Mario Kart is, but who is that guy? No, but for real, this world had to be in mind when they eventually made Pac-Man Rally. A fun fact on this stage is that it's the 15th level in the game, and you race against 15 clowns. So once again, a super unique world that leads to a super unique boss fight. I just love what this game did so much, no wonder it got a remake years later. The next world is a factory where you fight enemies like this walking gun, sharks in the water because obviously every factory is known for their aggressive shark problem, and the ghosts are hard at work rocking these hard hats because hunting Pac-Man down is more of a hobby and they still have to have their blue collar 9 to 5. This world was probably the weakest to me, nothing bad, but in a game so solid something has to stand out as the worst. It is interesting too because in the Game Boy release of Pac-Man World, they actually scrapped this world entirely. The final boss of this world is the Chrome Keeper. This one has to be the most similar to how the actual game plays, which is fine with me, no complaints. You utilize the steel ball ability and bounce on the steam platforms, otherwise Pac-Man will feel the burn on his biscuits. If you end up underneath the magnets, Pac-Man will get pulled up and stuck there for a second. The boss battle is actually pretty easy, especially if you just wait. He throws boxes at you. If you take any damage, most of the boxes contain health chunks. So if I was low on health, I would just bide my time in the corner and regain all my health. Once you bounce enough times and the Chrome Keeper has been bonked in the head enough, he will fall apart and be defeated, leading to the last area of the game. You make your way to a graveyard-like area featuring bats, fire-blowing skeletons, and the ghosts in there are in their natural habitat finally, so no real gimmick dressing up. This world also features casket platforms and gives off a whole Halloween vibe, very fun and neat section. Once you make your way through all 3 maps and rescue Miss Pac-Man, you are then able to enter the Ghosts party. But as I said earlier, you can only do that if you've rescued every single one of Pac-Man's friends. If you have not done that, you must go back and do that or else you'll be unable to beat the game. When you talk to each friend, they talk to you outside the world about helping you take down Pac-Man, which turns out to be true. Once you enter the party, a short cutscene will play and you will enter a battle with Pac-Man to settle who is the real Pac-Man. During the battle, if you get low on health, Pac-Man's friends and family will appear and deliver health for you to keep going. So that's a pretty cool thing that I like that they do here. During the battle, Pac-Man will have a health bar, which is the first boss in the game where you actually can see his health bar. And as the health bar goes down, he will go through multiple different modes. And each of these stages of the fight let Pac-Man utilize each of his abilities. Once you have defeated Pac-Man, he will crumble and fall apart and open a door, revealing the real villain, a ghost named Oscar. Oscar says he wanted to be loved like Pac-Man, but our yellow ball friend says, nah, you kidnapped my family and ruined my birthday, your ass is gonna get got. And Pac-Man proceeds to eat Oscar. The day is saved as Pac-Man and all his friends and family return home to celebrate his 20th anniversary. Pac-Man World is a really great game that I know a lot of people did enjoy growing up that I sadly missed out on. I would definitely recommend the game to anyone who enjoys 3D platformers. It's a really solid game, and if you think I talked it up enough for you to try it, there isn't just this PlayStation 1 version. They remade this game in 2022, so you can check it out whenever you want on any modern console. And for those of you wondering why Puka was the only remaining character out of all the other possible characters that got to stay when they changed it to the Pac-Man family, it was because Puka was a personal favorite of the game's top designer, Scott Rogers. There was also supposed to be a moment where Pac-Man says, "I love you, Oscar," in the final scene, which I think would be weird. I mean, he just kidnapped your family. Maybe you don't hate him, but like, I don't know, I wouldn't say love him either. But Pac-Man was still going to eat him, which I mean, kind of makes him look a little bit two-faced if he did that. And this was scrapped not because they thought like me, but because they had not found a voice actor they thought fit Pac-Man. So that's actually why he doesn't talk at all in this game. I view this game as a huge achievement in bringing an old character into a new generation. Where a lot of characters even fell off in the switch from 2D to 3D, Pac-Man was able to make the switch from arcade to 2D and now to 3D. I think it does a great job showing off the character's versatility in his design, and Namco's desire to keep Pac-Man relevant. So yeah, Pac-Man World, really amazing game, I highly recommend it. Now let's move on to the next one.
Hey, Pac-Man's back and everyone's feeling it. What do you got? Ooh. Nice try. Real graceful. That ain't it. Beak. Is that all you got? Pac-Man World 2, rated E for everyone.
Pac-Man World 2 is a direct sequel to Pac-Man World created by the same company as was released in 2002. In this game, Oscar is nowhere to be seen, and we start with an opening trailer of the original Ghost Gang, Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde, sneaking into Pac-Man Village at night. They sneak into the village to cause some havoc when they come across a special tree containing golden fruit pieces. The Ghost Gang take all 5 fruit pieces off and start to play around with them. Unbeknownst to them, for a time, the world begins to shake as they had actually awoken an ancient evil from his deep sleep. The ghost reveals himself to be Spooky, and Spooky tasks the Ghost Gang with hiding the golden fruit pieces, and with his help, they will rid the world of Pac-Land once and for all. The Ghost Gang agree, and an evil alliance is born. When morning comes around, Pac-Man is met by a distraught Professor Pac-Man, explaining that the 5 golden fruit pieces are gone. Professor Pac recounts the story of the tree to Pac-Man, saying that Spooky was an ancient ghost who terrorized the land until the great wizard Pac, who was one of Pac-Man's ancestors, created a potion that turned 5 regular fruit into 5 golden fruit, and with the help of Sir Pac-a-Lot, they were able to defeat Spooky and seal him under the tree with the 5 golden fruit. And now it is up to Pac-Man to stop and reclaim the 5 golden fruit pieces, defeat Spooky, and seal him once again to stop Pac-Land from being destroyed. Pac-Man World 2 introduces you to the Pac Village, which does have items and fruit for you to collect like a regular stage. You can enter an arcade, and once inside you can see all sorts of classic Pac-Man arcade games, which you can gain access to by collecting the right amount of tokens. In Pac-Man World 2, instead of letters, the new main thing you want to collect is tokens. When you head out into the world, you enter on a world map that reminded me a lot of Super Mario 3. When you enter the first world, you are met with a tutorial on how the game works, and a majority of the mechanics from Pac-Man World 1 return, besides the ability to throw Pac pellets, which makes me sad. You still have the rev roll and the butt bounce, but now you have the ability to jump kick. And this has to be where they got the idea for Pac-Man's up air and smash. I mean, it looks exactly like it. You can use the kick to break boxes or hit enemies up high. You also get to see right away the different setup of levels in this game. While they are still linear levels like Pac-Man World, the maps themselves are much bigger and offer more room to roam and explore. The fruit you collect also serve more of a purpose than just points at the end of the level, which I like. They are used for opening chests. To open certain chests, you have to collect X amount of fruit. Throughout each map, there's 8 tokens you can use back in the village, but you can also get 2 bonus ones if you 100% the level, collecting all tokens, fruit, and Pac dots, as well as completing the time trial. Similar to Pac-Man World 1, the Galaxian ship sends you to a special maze, but in this one, once you beat the maze, you can actually replay it back at the arcade in Pac Village. And I did mention a time trial because once you beat a level, you have a challenge to go back and beat it in a certain amount of time, which I like because it also gives the game a lot more replayability. This game, in my opinion, made a lot of nice improvements from the levels from Pac-Man World 1, adding a lot more unique moments between each, like here he is bouncing through trees, or here he is sliding around the lava and trying to control the levels of them. The worlds in this game are not a special theme like pirates or ancient Egypt, but they're more like forests, volcanoes, ice, and underwater. Throughout the game, Professor Pac-Man and others will appear to give Pac-Man advice and new items, creating special levels like ones here where he's roller skating, or one where he's ice skating down a mountain. I found this one to be interesting because he's ice skating on the cover of the game, yet this is the only level in the game where he actually ice skates. And in the levels where Pac-Man is underwater, he will get this really cool dash ability. To even get to the final island, Professor Pac-Man sets you up with a submarine so you can shoot your way through enemies and anything in your path to get to Ghost Island. When it comes to the bosses in Pac-Man World 2, they do lack the uniqueness of Pac-Man World 1. What you face at the end of each world is one of the 4 members of the Ghost Gang controlling a giant robot. The first one you fight is Blinky, who is in the most unique robot, which is a frog that sticks its tongue out to hit you. It also jumps in the air and tries to land on you to cause damage. But after that, it's pretty much the same robot with slightly different variations each time. This game really utilizes the rev roll a lot. I think the team who made this really wanted to highlight this ability. I found myself using the rev roll a lot, and it's like the main focus of every boss fight. Once you defeat each member of the Ghost Gang, collecting each of the golden fruit, you make your way to Ghost Island via submarine and swimming. When you get to Ghost Island, you enjoy a few fun maps, one including a skating level, which I enjoyed a lot. I do think it's interesting that even though it's the same team that made this, and this is considered a direct sequel to Pac-Man World, that there's almost no relation to Ghost Island between the two games. On Ghost Island, you come across my favorite map in the whole game called Ghost Bayou, which is also the longest due to dialogue and all the switches. In this level, you meet the Wormwood, which is like an evil version of the Tree of Life. In this one, you run across its branches and slowly make your way to the middle, dealing with challenges like getting over fences, defeating enemies in certain time limits. It's really cool storytelling here because the Wormwood talks to you constantly. And to me, having to stay on the branches and make your way through kind of reminded me of an original Pac-Man maze, which I was a big fan of. Once you make your way through all the traps set and obstacles, you end up at the Wormwood itself. He admits defeat and puts out its life energy in putting out the heart of the Ghost Island. Spooky, who sees this, tells Pac-Man he is going to Pac-Land to destroy the tree once and for all. When Pac-Man makes it back to the tree, he places the golden fruit back on the tree, and the fruit gives Pac-Man a golden body, one of capable of taking down Spooky. You enter combat with Spooky in an epic showdown around the tree on honestly a super huge map. I would hit him a single time with a jump kick and just watch him haul ass across the entire stage, and it's like, alright, fine, I guess I'll chase you down. I know this isn't the only game to do this. I just always laugh when you see the main boss fly across a massive stage and you're like, oh, you just wait till I get over there. This is where your new up air ability gets to shine as you kick Spooky until he's eventually defeated. Once he is defeated, the golden fruit tree activates, causing the tree to suck Spooky back into it, sealing him once again. The people of Pac Village come out to celebrate. The Ghost Gang is chased out of town by Chomp Chomp and the day is saved. After celebrating, Professor Pac-Man promises that the tree will be protected from now on so that this can never happen again. So Pac-Man World 2 is a really great game. I do love this series of games. It's definitely a standout series that I'm surprised stops at 3. I did look into why it did, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Even with this game beaten, there's still a lot that you can go back and do, like collecting the tokens to access all the classic games, as well as opening up the museum. The arcade games are what they are. They're just the original Pac-Man games, which is pretty cool. And the museum, when unlocked at 150 tokens, showcases concept art as well as pictures of the dev team. You even, in some versions, get a trailer for Pac-Man Rally. Hey guys, Future Ben here. So when I started making this video, they had not announced the remake of Pac-Man World 2 repack. So for those of you who are on the fence about getting it, I hope this portion of the video either inspires you to try it, or at least get your hands on the original. I'm definitely going to try the remake one day myself, and if you've already gotten your hands on it, let me know down in the comments what you think of it. Pac-Man World 3 was developed by Blizz Games and published by Namco Home Tech in 2005. So this one was not made in-house at the time like the other two, but there's a reason for that and I'll explain later. This one also starts with a birthday scene just like Pac-Man World, because this one, instead of being his 20th anniversary, it's actually Pac-Man's 25th anniversary. While trying to celebrate his birthday, Pac-Man starts to feel weird and starts teleporting all around Pac Village until he is eventually transported to the intended destination, that being the Spectral Realm, more specifically, the Bot Boneyard.
You're not 24 anymore, you know.
But I'm not doing anything!
Pac-Man learns that the person who sent him here is actually Orison, the boss and hidden ghost inside of Pac-Man in the original Pac-Man World. Orison explains that he needs Pac-Man's help to stop a former colleague of his named Irwin from siphoning the Spectral Realm's energy, as it could have dire consequences on both the Spectral Realm and Pac Village, so Pac-Man agrees to help. Orison says for extra help, Pac-Man should recruit the original Ghost Gang to team up and help him defeat Irwin. When you start the game, you learn Pac-Man's abilities pretty much all come back, including the rev roll and the butt bounce, but the upkick from Pac-Man World 2 is gone, and my beloved Pac throwing still nowhere to be seen. But Pac-Man does have a new ability in this game, and it's the ability to throw hands, son.
I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me.
That's right, in Pac-Man World 3, Pac-Man doesn't just have his special abilities, but it is also time to put his hair up and square up with any mofo who steps up. While looking for the Ghost Gang, you save Pinky from falling and she agrees to join your team. And you save Blinky from imprisonment and he reluctantly joins you. And I want to mention here that this game has a ton of dialogue and fleshes out these characters quite a bit. For Pac-Man World 1, they mentioned that they couldn't find a voice actor they thought fit Pac-Man, but they found one they liked for Pac-Man World 3, and boy, they let Pac-Man talk a lot. That's not a complaint, by the way. I think it's cool to hear Pac-Man and all the ghosts talk. It's cool to see these characters have dialogue and actually interact with one each other. Every mission opens up with a conversation between Orson and Pac-Man communicating, and you get the vibe Pac-Man's a little bit more confident in this game. Like, he's a little full of himself. He's been through this before. He knows how to be a hero.
Outpost calling yellow fellow. Repeat. Can you hear me?
My spectrometer. Who's there?
Pac-Man.
The signal's bad here. Some idiot teleported me into a pit.
Even in the cutscenes where Pac-Man saves Blinky and Pinky, you get to see old ideas of the characters hold true, like Pinky having a crush on Pac-Man and Blinky disliking Pac-Man. It's funny because the two don't even call each other by their names. As for Blinky and Clyde, they have been captured by Irwin and are being used to power his Pterodecahedron, which is hard to say. This game does a nice balance of having Pac-Man go back and forth between the two worlds to save the day, one being the regular world and the other being the spectral realm. Instead of multiple maps like in the previous games, the world is just one big continuous map that goes all the way until you reach one of the spectral siphons. Which is cool because it showcases how far technology had come, and I think they did a really nice job designing each world. They used the Pac chain a lot as a way of keeping the stages interesting, as you have to collect special crystals to be able to activate a Pac chain for you to get to a new area on the map. There is also a lot to collect. You have the Pac dots and fruit, of course, but now you have Pac-Man statues that give Pac-Man extra points. The new big item to collect, however, is the collectible cards. The collectible cards give you something to view in the museum. You can also make new friends along the way and talk to them too. Like, there really is a lot of dialogue in this game. They really wanted to create something here and showcase Pac-Man's personality a lot. Like I said, no complaints, but it is crazy to hear him go from absolutely no talking in all these games to just not stop talking. You can also still collect the Galaxian ships to enter mazes, but this game actually makes Pac-Man mazes a main focal point, as it's the only way to destroy the spectral siphons. I do love that in all these games they find some way to make a reference to the original Pac-Man games. It's a cool way to throw it back to his golden days. And this time Pac-Man does not do it alone, as you use the Reveral ability on these special platforms and he transfers his subconscious over to Blinky or Pinky. Pinky can actually make invisible platforms appear for Pac-Man to jump on, but she can only do it 3 at a time, which in some cases kind of makes a puzzle in itself. And as for Blinky, he can change into a giant version of himself and knock over walls and create walkways. Blinky is also my favorite for combat in this game because, yeah, Pac-Man can throw hands and access multiple abilities, but those abilities pale in comparison to Blinky. You can literally just spam this Ghost Blast ability he has, and every enemy drops really fast. Even the new Spectral Ghost enemies just take 2 blasts to take down from Blinky. I found myself being Blinky as long as I could every time I could be him, because this game has a ton of enemies and it just felt so good to mow them down easily. Like I said, Pac-Man has his special abilities he can activate through balls. In this game, he is more than ever. He has the Power Pellet, which in this game lets him eat the Spectral Ghosts, the Ribbon Loop Pellet, which has a trail follow behind Pac-Man that when he crosses, it completes a trail and it will do a ton of damage to an enemy inside it. There is the Super Stomp, which just like in the previous games, Pac-Man can butt bounce and create a giant green shockwave hitting all the enemies around him. The Electroshock, which lets Pac-Man just turn into Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, honestly. And the Return of the Steel Ball form, except in this game, they call it the Chrome Power Pellet. It does all the same things, but I'm really not sure why they changed the name. And with these new abilities, you have to go toe-to-toe with a ton of enemies. I'm talking aliens, spectral ghosts, big monsters, and like I said, Blinky could just mow everybody down like it's nothing. The main game does have a similar pattern of land in the area, defeat enemies along the way, and solve the puzzles until you come across the spectral siphon and destroy it. That being said, I don't think there was a bad world in this game. I wish there was a little more interesting, unique things to do in each, but I can't put my finger on it. But it did feel a bit repetitive in the main concept. That being said, it was cool that they added side characters that in some cases progress the story. Once you defeat all the spectral siphons, Irwin tries to launch a full attack on Orson at the base, and with the help of Blinky and the two of you coming together, you're able to control the new and improved Pac-Man. This new and improved Pac-Man is a giant version of Pac-Man that you can use to destroy hordes of enemies. I was struggling to control the suit and I kept getting my ass kicked and having to run to find health, but I did succeed eventually. Next time, just send Blinky out there, bro's got beams of stone. Once you stop Irwin's attacks, you face him one-on-one in his Pterodecahydron. You must use the Reveral ability to free Inky and Clyde and destroy Irwin's Pterodecahydron once and for all. And this was another one of those boss battles where the map was huge and you just had to run to get from place to place. Once the fight is done, it leads to a chase scene where Irwin tries to get away, but he is luckily stopped by our hero Pac-Man. Irwin starts to argue with Pac-Man, and unbeknownst to him, he starts to get sucked up by his last siphon, to which Pac-Man says,
Please keep your feet on the ground, Irwin.
Irwin is then sucked into the siphon, blowing it up and ending him once and for all.
I always hated yellow.
Once Irwin is defeated, Pac-Man is sent back home via teleportation as he falls down from the sky, but luckily the cake was saved. Although shortly after that, Blinky teleports underneath the cake, ruining it once and for all. One by one, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde soon all show up too, and they go on to tell Miss Pac-Man what had happened with Irwin and everything throughout the game. They even ask to stay with Pac-Man while Orson fixes the Spectral Realm, which leads to Junior tossing Pac-Man a power pellet and he chases the Ghost Gang away. This was actually a pretty fun game that put a lot of focus on the storytelling, which I think is a cool change of pace for the Pac-Man games. In the museum, you can play the original Pac-Man as well as see a timeline of Pac-Man up until this point. You can view the cards you collected throughout the game, and you can see an interview with Toru Iwatani talking about Pac-Man's history. There is also a TV that I did not get to see because I played on the GameCube version. The TV shows a trailer for Pac-Man Rally, which we all know goes on to be a banger Ultimate Series, being the greatest racing game of all time, and makes us all say Mario who? This game though actually has, in my opinion, the most interesting backstory of all of the Pac-Man games. Pac-Man World 3 was originally supposed to be called Pac-Man Adventures, but it was cancelled in 2003, although a lot of ideas from that game did appear here. When Adventures was cancelled, Namco hired Blitz Gaming to create the new game and turn it into Pac-Man World 3. The game started production right around the time of a merger between Namco and Bandai, forming Bandai Namco Holdings. This game caused Namco to cancel all Pac-Man games, including Pac-Man World 3. Blitz Games, however, begged Namco to let them keep working on it. Namco eventually agreed to let this happen, but told them that they would not receive any more funding and the game had to come out in 2005. So for a short time span, Blitz Gaming received no money, and they were put on a tight deadline. This had to have created a pretty tall task for Blitz Gaming. Due to this budget cut and short deadline, the game was released with missing features that had previously been seen. Like, there was supposed to be a shop where Pac-Man could buy items that was seen on a demo disc. There were also supposed to be power smoothies by collecting fruit and forming them together. There was also supposed to be the ability for Pac-Man to collect power pellets and use them whenever. The last two things I'll leave you with when it comes to this game that I found interesting, well, at least that I could find. The game was initially going to be called Pac-Man World 3 Elixir of Life, but because of the time constraint and short budget, they just nixed the Elixir thing altogether. The other cool fact is that the voice of Pac-Man is Martin T. Sherman, who also voices Thomas the Tank Engine. Pac-Man World 3, even though it had all these issues in production, I will say it came out to be a really good game. I'm even more impressed that it came out finished the way it did with the short time constraint and no budget that Blitz Gaming had. A lot of modern games come out unfinished and they're almost unplayable, but this game, they literally had to rush it and it still is a complete package. I still don't know if I'd say it's as good as Pac-Man World 1 or 2, but it's still a really fun game that you should check out. That is going to do it for the mainline Pac-Man games, in my opinion, seeing as this was one of the last real attempts at making any big Pac-Man game. There are a lot of small, more gimmicky ones for handheld consoles like Pac-Pix or Pac-N-Roll or Pac-Man Tilt, but I plan on going over all of them eventually regardless. When I go over them is all going to matter on what you guys have to say if you want to see it now or later. Like I said back before, I wanted to stick to mainline games for characters and then go back and play their niche spin-off games after I go through the rest of the Smash Bros. Cast. But I do want to hear what you all think. As for now, I will say this brings this video to an end. I hope you enjoyed this, and I apologize again for the long delay, but I promise you that you won't have to wait too long for the next video. I already have one more Pac-Man video that I plan to make, but I wanted to separate the two because I view this as a completely different Pac-Man. And I'm talking about his rebranding in Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Like I said, if you want to see a Pac-Man miscellaneous video after the Ghostly Adventures video, let me know down in the comments. But as for now, my plan is to do Ghostly Adventures and then move on to the next character. So goodbye for now, and I will see you in the next one.